In August 2021, a very unfortunate accident occurred at Cedar Point when a guest standing in line for Top Thrill Dragster was hit by a metal piece that flew off of an incoming train as it hit the brake run. Dragster immediately closed and remained closed for the 2021 season and did not open at all in 2022. In September of 22, Cedar Point announced the Top Thrill Dragster as we know it has been retired. The ride would never open again as Top Thrill Dragster. In January, we learned that the ride, however, would reopen in 2024, and their tagline was a new formula for thrills. The big towering top hat was still in place, however, the brake run, launch track, and station had been completely removed. Rumors were swirling that Zamperla would be behind the project, not Intamin. We saw some new teasers go up on work walls, and now, as of August 1st, we have an official announcement from Cedar Point. The new attraction will be called Top Thrill 2, the second iteration of Top Thrill Dragster. Zamperla is indeed behind the project, and the new coaster will feature an LSM triple launch, replacing the original singular hydraulic launch. The new ride experience would be as follows: a 74-mile-per-hour first launch. You'll make it partway up the tower, fall back, accelerate backwards at 101 miles per hour, and you'll rise up a 420-foot-tall vertical spike. You'll drop down and then hit your maximum speed of 120 miles per hour. That is the same speed that Top Thrill Dragster originally hit. Then you'll go up the same tower that we know and love, spiral back down, and then hit the brake run. The original ride time of Dragster was about 17 seconds. Cedar Point is advertising this as a 2-minute ride time. Now, I do think that time is a bit exaggerated. It's definitely accounting for like leaving the station, parking at the launch track, and then likewise at the end, hitting the brakes and going back into the station. But we're at least looking at a ride cycle that is 3 times the length of the original, which fixes one of the biggest problems that people had with Dragster, is that it is over too quickly. So that is a huge plus. We also got all new colors for the coaster. White track with dark gray supports looks super sharp, and they left the original white and red alternating colors at the very top of the top hat, which actually looks really, really cool, and the spike will share the same colors at the top of that. The coaster will also feature a brand new set of trains. It has to in order to accommodate for this launch. Zamperla will be debuting their all-new Lightning trains on Top Thrill 2. We saw these on display at IAAPA last year for the new coaster going to Playland Vancouver. As of right now, though, it is unclear which one of those projects is going to open first, so there's a chance that you can actually experience a Lightning train over there before here. Although Cedar Point does usually like to open up their new attractions on opening day of the park, which is usually the first week of May. And they've already made quite a bit of progress on this thing. As of right now, the coaster's like half painted. We have several new sections of track in place. The first support columns were just placed today for that massive new spike. So if you attend Cedar Point for the rest of the 2023 season, definitely expect to see more pieces go in place for that, because that's forever going to change the skyline of Cedar Point. It's going to be crazy walking down that pathway and seeing this massive spike there. In total, we're looking at 3,422 feet of track. Top Thrill Dragster originally had 2,800 feet of track, so this new spike edition is adding 622 feet. 420 of that is for the spike. The other 202 is probably going to be accommodating for the pullout. Because this is a swing launch, it goes back and forth. We have to have a station that allows for that train to be moving through while you can still load. So when you dispatch, you're going to turn a bit to the right, line up with the track, and then that track piece behind you is going to switch, so that way when you go backwards, you'll enter the path of the spike. You can actually see that track switch mechanism here in the Zamperla factory that they've been working on. See how fast it is? It's very similar to that technology that Intamin has put on rides like Pantheon and Tutatis. Now, I mentioned how the length is going to be a big improvement here. A downside is definitely going to be the capacity. Top Thrill Dragster had 6 trains they could operate with. Now, I don't think it ever really used all 6. I'd say more often than not, it was like 4 or 5. But with Top Thrill 2, we'll see 3 train operations. So you'll have one in the station, one parked behind you on the brakes, and then one actually on the ride course going back and forth. Now, I'm certainly no mathematician, but luckily subscriber Jared Holbrook is, and he did the math to figure out the hourly capacity. Assuming they always run all 3 trains and fill every seat, which I'm already doubtful about because I don't think they'll have a single rider line, that's about 840 people per hour. Hopefully, though, they're able to send trains a little bit faster than that, and if they send one every minute, it's 1,200 people per hour. Now, the good news is that we're going to have 2 additional passengers per train from the original Dragster. Top Thrill Dragster had 18 riders per train, and this has 20. And the main reason for that is actually in the first car. See right here how you have 4 passengers for the first car? That's pretty normal for a roller coaster setup. But on Top Thrill Dragster, the front car had a really long nose piece, so there were only 2 passengers there. So it's going to be interesting to see how their operations are. I mean, it looks like we're just dealing with the lap bar here. It's definitely possible there could be a seatbelt. I wouldn't be surprised if there was. I mean, Dragster had one, so it would make sense here. But still lap bar only. I imagine they'll put the best crews on this right when they open so they can get those things pumping out fast, because this will have quite the line. And Dragster did too. The difference is, Dragster was extremely unreliable. I think the big goal with this refurb is to increase reliability. That's something that Cedar Point has always wanted with this attraction, even before the accident. So I think the accident was absolutely an excuse to start putting these cards into motion. If you've noticed, we've pretty much stopped seeing new hydraulic launch coasters built. Everything is linear synchronous motors these days. What's interesting is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is actually the first time that we're seeing LSMs on a Zamperla coaster. Usually they use flywheels for rides like Pony Express or their motor coasters. And usually there are bugs when it comes to prototypes, so I think Top Thrill 2 absolutely will have its fair share of problems when it opens, but long term, hopefully it'll be more reliable than Dragster. I'm not too concerned though about Zamperlas and LSMs, because they can easily outsource to companies like InDriveTech or Intrasys that specialize them. You can find their launch systems on tons of Intamins and B&Ms. It's all going to be about how they work with those trains though. I actually had the opportunity to sit in the Lightning trains and found them to be very comfortable. I know they're extremely lightweight though. They use aluminum alloy, fiberglass, and carbon fiber. It's all supposed to make it very aerodynamic. And it's part of Zamperla's goal with upgrading their coaster division. If you mentally associate Zamperla with rides like their Volares and Thunderbolts, then you probably don't have a super high opinion of Zamperla rides. But realize that that is not the same company as the Zamperla that we are dealing with for Top Thrill 2. Over the past several years, they realized how far behind they were in the coaster division. They're getting smoked by their competitors. They're doing great in the flat rides department. They're easily the best when it comes to kids rides. But they said, we want to step it up. So they've spent a lot of money, a lot of time in R&D, and they're trying to be a real competitor, and this is their way of making their grand entrance. Now, it's certainly a big jump. I think it certainly would have been cool to see them do maybe some smaller projects here and there. But I'll tell you what, this is absolutely going to have everyone's attention. People are going to be watching to see how this goes, and that can mean a lot more Zamperla coasters in the future. Now, I think the question that everyone's kind of been wondering throughout this whole project that still remains unanswered is, why didn't Cedar Fair go to Intamin for this? They were the original manufacturers of Top Thrill Dragster. Why Zamperla? And to be honest, it's tough to say. I'd be shocked if they didn't at least have some sort of conversation with Intamin about the redo, but it's clear now that they have no part in this overhaul. Like, I know at this point, for insurance purposes, Intamin officially has nothing to do with this, so anything that happens with the ride going forward, they can't be held liable because Cedar Point and Zamperla have been messing with it. Intamin is obviously very proven in the thrill rides department. They're pretty much the world leader when it comes to big roller coasters, but with Intamin, sometimes you also get reliability issues. Dragster is an amazing coaster, but it was down a lot. Easily one of the most unreliable roller coasters on the planet. It's pretty much that in Lightning Rod. So maybe it was just that they decided to try something new. I have faith that everything will go well, at least practically, but what about ride experience? How's this gonna feel? Frankly, I don't think the launch is gonna be as good as it used to. Top Thrill Dragster had my favorite launch in the world. Yes, even more so than Dodadampa, which has the world's fastest acceleration. I liked Dragster's launch more because of how forceful it was and how drawn out it was. There was nothing like sitting in the front row of that ride. So the launch will absolutely be dearly missed. Yes, you still have roller coasters like King Dakar that exist, but Dragster's launch felt more punchy. We have a 74-mile-per-hour first launch. It does come to a stop right before you hit that speed, so it's not like a rolling launch here. But at least in this video, it looks like much more of a gradual buildup, which is a little concerning because, I mean, the thing that made this launch so good was how suddenly you took off. Yes, you'll still eventually hit 120 miles per hour, but how are you going to get there? Between launch 1 and launch 2, you're only going to gain 27 miles per hour. Between launch 2 and launch 3, you gain 19 miles per hour. Are you even going to be able to feel that? Yes, I think to some extent, but I think it's more so about the rate of acceleration. I do wish that we hit a higher top speed with that first launch. 74 miles per hour is good, absolutely, but this is a really long section of straight track. The reason that this pull up into the top hat is so drawn out is because of how much speed you had hitting it. So now, if you're going 74, rising up, it might feel kind of anticlimactic, especially considering you don't look like you're going to go that high up the tower. Cedar Point is literally advertising this as a rollback, but in my opinion, this is no rollback. A rollback is when you fell backwards 420 feet back down to the ground. Now, the exact height that this train has reached has not been released. However, we can take a pretty accurate guess. iSpeed at Mirabilandia launches riders at 68 miles per hour, and that makes it up 180 feet in the air. Storm Runner at Hershey Park launches riders at 75 miles per hour and they make it up 150 feet in the air. So I think it's safe to say that it'll be somewhere between 150 and 180 feet. But you're really only going to be vertical in those first couple rows. I think if you're in the back of the train, you're still going to be at an incline. Now, what's even more interesting is the height of this spike. If Top Thrill Dragster needs 120 miles per hour in order to clear that top hat, then why do you need a backward spike that's 420 feet tall if you're only going to be hitting 101 miles per hour? For reference, Red Force at Ferrari Land makes it over a 367 foot tall top hat at 111 miles per hour. So that's 10 miles per hour more, but 53 feet shorter. So surely the back of this train isn't going to be exceeding 350 feet. So what exactly is the point of having a spike that tall? Like, no matter what, you're breaking the record for the world's tallest spike, if that's what you're concerned about. It seems like a marketing ploy to say that you have two 420-foot tall towers. But what difference does it make if your tower is 375 feet tall? Is it just for trial and error, like so that you have some extra room in case that you launch it too fast? I don't know. It's just really weird. Last thing I'll talk about before we end things out, the change in the theme. Yeah, they kept with the racing theme. They switched from drag racing to now Formula 1. It never says that specifically, but I think it's kind of implied. Their whole branding is with the world's greatest thrill team, CP Racing. That's what this really clever logo is all about. They're keeping the grandstand so you can watch the train go back and forth, but new crew members are invited to take the wheel and defy gravity. I think it'll be pretty cool. It's a nice stylized look. I love what they did with the trains. I think it's a fun logo. I think that whole plaza is going to look very clean. I've loved all the big refurbishments that Cedar Point has done to the different areas of the park. And honestly, the area by Top Thrill Dragster really needed a facelift. And I think it's finally getting the attention it deserves. So I fully expect to like the area around Top Thrill 2 a lot more than I did there around Dragster. But it still pays homage to the original attraction. And inevitably, I think that's why they went with the name that they did. This truly is a hybrid of the original attraction and something new altogether. And as weird as it is to say Top Thrill 2, I see why they did it. They're aware that so much of the roller coaster is the same, that it's not a fundamentally different attraction, that people will still refer to it as Top Thrill Dragster. So they're just modifying it, not trying to pretend that it's something entirely different. The only downside, in my opinion, is I never called Top Thrill Dragster Top Thrill. I always called it Dragster. So now I have to get used to calling this thing Top Thrill 2. I'm gonna have to mentally separate them. One is Dragster, one is Top Thrill. Maybe that's how I'll keep track of them. Anyways, I am super excited to see how this all plays out. I'm excited for the Zamperla team taking on a big project like this. That's a huge win for their company. I'm excited to see the impact this has on the amusement industry and the future of rides like this. I'm excited for Cedar Point and I hope they meet their goals. And I think it's gonna be a fun ride experience. Will it be better than Top Thrill Dragster? To be determined. But it seems like it's going to solve the problems they had while still allowing us to experience this awesome ride. So I'm okay with it. So let me know down in the comments below what you think of Top Thrill 2 coming to Cedar Point in 2024. Let me know if you agree with everything that I brought up, and stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.